Welcome, folks. Today we dive into the mysteries surrounding Reddit's unexplainable mysteries. Tales that defy explanation and leave us questioning the boundaries of the supernatural world. Get ready for the top 3 unexplained phenomena Reddit stories. Story 1, from Redditor, I'm That Guy Bro. My friends and I went away for a weekend out to a trailer park, and there was a beach nearby. We were all young but respectful, about 18 to 20. The beach was within walking distance, so we packed up our guitars, blankets, and booze all in a wagon, walked to the beach during the day, and had a good time. It was around 3 in the morning when we all decided to head back home for the night. On our way back, we walked down a road, and it was dark, but there was one streetlight on it. It's in the middle of nowhere, so it's almost pitch black. The moon that night was bright and full. The park was surrounded by farmers' fields vast and wide. The road on one side had trees that surrounded the trailer park, and on the other side of the road was an empty field of beans growing. Only, it wasn't completely empty. In the center of the field was a door, a glass door standing alone. It sparkled in the moonlight. It was green, blue, and gold. The bunch of us stopped and gazed upon it. We didn't know what to make of it. Some of the group wanted to check it out. I was on the side of staying as far away as possible. I had seen too many movies and heard far too many stories. Questions flew around. What is it? Where does it go? Why was it there? All questions to this day are unanswered. After a few minutes, some of the girls got creeped out and wanted to go back to the trailers. We all pushed on, and it wasn't until the next day when we all got together that we spoke about it. One guy thought he had dreamt the whole thing. Someone suggested we go check it out as it was day. We all agreed. And when we went back to the field, there was no door. I've told this story to some through the years. Some think we were hallucinating, but we all saw it. And some just flat out don't believe it. Not all of us were drinking or smoking. Some stayed sober, and they saw the same thing. Some part of me regrets not checking it out, but the other part says, I'm glad I trusted my gut and didn't. Story 2, from Redditor, Not That Easy. One night, a couple of years ago, I was in my room, having gone to bed at an unseasonably early hour. I was living in my parents' house at the time, but I was the only one there. As I was drifting to sleep, I heard someone walking around downstairs and some rustling about. This was strange since I could have sworn I'd set my house alarm, and I wasn't expecting anyone. I was too tired to investigate, so in my mind, I told myself that maybe one of my sisters was coming home or my grandparents were staying over. I'm sure my mom had mentioned it, but it's rare that I listened to her drone on and on about whatever banality she had called me about that day. I listened to the noises long enough to decide that whoever was there wasn't stealing anything and probably wasn't a threat. The next day, I woke up and stumbled into the bathroom at about 8 a.m. to start my morning routine. As I lifted the toilet seat up, I found a giant turd that someone had clearly left sitting there for a few hours. And this thing, man, this thing was huge. The baby's arm is huge. I dry heaved for a moment before I realized that not only were there a giant piece of shit in my toilet, but no toilet paper as well. I did a quick wipe check to see if maybe I had started to sleep shit with an amazing degree of accuracy, but it came back clean. I went from being confused to being furious right away, since this implied that whoever had broken into my house the previous evening had thought they knew enough to piss in my bathroom without even thinking to flush. When I stormed into my sister's room to shout her awake, the bed was still made but vacant. Thinking maybe she had chosen the California King over a meager twin extra long, I strolled down the hall to my parents' room. Same circumstances. Newly manufactured, unaltered. At this point, I thought one of my grandparents was playing a strangely elaborate trick on me, their bad hips preventing them from moving quickly up and down our curved staircase. So if either of them had made use of my bathroom, it would have been out of spite rather than necessity. I walked downstairs into our guest room to poke my head in and see if anyone was there, but no such luck. At this point, I'm completely befuddled. I went to the front door to see if there were any cars out front that I would recognize. But when I opened the door, the house alarm went off. I froze for a moment before closing the door, turning off the alarm, and spending the next 20 minutes in the shower trying to figure out how the phantom poo had arrived at its destination. Story 3, from Redditor Kiblensbits. So this was back in 2006 when I was 16 and worked at a chain pretzel shop at my local mall. Now this is during the dead afternoon days of the summer. Usually there would just be one person manning the satellite store, as there was the main one upstairs and the satellite store downstairs. I managed both the satellite pretzel store and the ice cream store that was connected to it. Currently, I find myself in a unique position. The day was passing at a leisurely pace, and without any windows, time seemed to come to a halt. The constant surveillance from the cameras in the upstairs store made it quite challenging to send text messages or have any sort of distractions. Regardless, at some unknown time, a family of 3, mother, daughter, and young son, stopped some distance from the counter and stared at me and the pretzels. I would not have thought it to be odd except for how they were dressed. They looked like they came straight out of the 1950s like this. The son was much younger and was in the 1950s style clothing as well. I was thinking how weird this could possibly be. But then I realized that right upstairs, there was a professional photo shoot franchise, so they were probably dressed up for some photos. It was not until the little boy came up to the counter and asked for a pretzel. I told him the price, $2.66, and he handed me a $1 bill. I motioned to the mother that the pretzel cost $2.66, $1.66 short. She looked at me like I told her the pretzel cost $10, because I understand that almost $3 for a pretzel is high. However, she looked at me as if I wanted to fork over her life savings. The little boy, not talking, hands me the dollar. I take a hard stare at it and realize it's a silver certificate, series 1956. And this dollar bill did not look like it was 49 years old. It had normal wear and tear like a series 2003 bill had at the time. It wasn't crisp, but it was still very much usable and a bank would probably use it for further transactions. At this point, I realized that nobody else really crossed their paths the entire time. And the music media store next door was pretty dead, even for a midsummer afternoon, while pedestrian traffic just seemed to not exist. I hand the dollar back to the boy, and he walks away with his mother and sister. I didn't see them afterward, and nobody witnessed this account. After constant prodding, I was finally able to look at the cameras looking towards the satellite store. I was obviously talking to customers, but the camera was angled so that you couldn't see any of them. Have you encountered any unexplainable stories on Reddit? Share your discoveries in the comments below and it may end up in the next video. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the unknown. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more intriguing explorations.